All right, all, we got another Bronco we have rounded up in the stable. Actually, this one was brought to us to be diagnosed, broken, saddle trained. This one is Badlands version 4-door. Also has Baja kits on the front of it. But you can see something ain't right. It's nose proud as, what do they call it? The Carolina stance or the white fender stance. It ain't got no white fender, so it ain't in Carolina, so we can't have that. Basically the complaint was that it was hard to drive, darty all over the place. You certainly didn't text and drive or take your hands off the wheel or any of that stuff. It's a beautiful Bronco, but it was hard to drive. And then while they were driving it one day, the way I understand it, could be wrong, all of a sudden it just developed this stance. So I said, bring it in. Had to wait a week or two till I could get to it. Told him, bring it in. And when we got there, before we even got off the trailer, may have to go get a light. And if I do, I can't see, then we will. We got there and we see that sway bar right there is hitting the shock. This side is clear, but let's go to the other side. This side is clear by a 1/16 of an inch. Yeah, there's my hoard of junk. I don't know, it's a sickness. And this one is not hitting either. The other side was hitting, but I think it has to do. Okay, so when we got it, the sway bar, when we got it off the trailer, that sway bar was making contact with that shock, and that shock is, I don't know if you can see it, it's broken. It's broken. That's why it's not going up and down. That down there, that is the bearing. It's supposed to be up in there. It's supposed to be up in the shock, so we got to diagnose not just the cause of this whole stance, but also we don't have to diagnose the problem, we have to diagnose the cause. Let's get to the root cause and let's get this beautiful creature back out in the wild where she belongs. We help this team with their shocks on their class 1 car, so and there's a race coming up, so let's get this one out in Mexico for the 500. So we got her in the shop. We're working on the storage shop, so it's a little cluttered over here, but we'll get it all together. And first we got to take these tires off and figure out what we got to do to free it up from that sway bar and then remove the upper shocks. So yeah, let's get it on jack. Let's get into it. Yes, the chickens are upset at something. Probably my dog over there. No, there's my dog, but okay. So that sway bar is altogether too close to that shock. And there is the culprit, that bent sway bar link. We're going to find out what caused that. And also we're going to diagnose the twitchy steering, which may or may not be the same thing. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the sway bar link off both sides and get the sway bar out of the way. See what the friction on it feels like. And then we're going to remove some shocks. See if we can get you a better idea of how this shock, if you look in there, that should be inside the shock up there, and it's not. That is the actual bearing of the shock. There's no oil, it's destroyed. Yeah, all this oil came out. If there were smoke in the shock, it would have let it out, but no smoke, so it's done. So, and that was because that, I don't know if that's what caused it or if it's what caused the sway bar link. We're going to diagnose that with the twitchy steering, we're going to see if there's any bind anywhere. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the tie rod and just see how the spindle swivels back and forth. It's probably okay. But that's after we get the sway bar link out. So this one might be good. Maybe we'll switch to a GoPro chest cam and see if we can get some footage that way. Well, we're gonna go grab a bite of lunch. First, I thought you might want to see what the carnage is. So it appears as though that shock came apart. There's the bearing. And there is, yeah, everything's still attached. There's a snap ring, spring, soft wear band, pulled right out. Oh, it looks pretty inside. I don't think we're saving that one, guys. That's okay. We can get another one. Or get a different one. Or get a better one. Yep. I don't know if you can see in there, but man, it's not good. And there's a lot of preload on that spring. We'll discuss that in a little while. Before the complaint of the high ride height happened, there was a complaint of it wouldn't track down the road right. You drive the car, and he said you just had to keep on it all the time. It would never track straight. I think his text was, you sure can't break the texting and driving. Sure, on this one. If you just tried to drive it down the road, you had to nurse it or herd it down the road all the time. So I did a video on stiction in a sway bar making the suspension feel weird, and I've had 3 or 4 cars since then have that same issue. So I've taken the tie rod off. It is not connected to the steering. It is only connected at pivot and pivot. And so now I'm going to just by hand try to turn it. I should be able to turn it by pressing with one thumb, which I can't. So I'm going to press and pull as hard as I can, and I can barely turn it. And I ain't kidding you either. I ain't joking. That's tight. And there is our track down the road problem right there. That's not good. I don't know where it's happening. I think we'll take this one off first and see how it pivots in the lower ball. Pivot's good there. We'll take the lower ball out and see how the upper ball pivots, but it should not do that. So we got to find that. Right now I'm going to go take the other shock off. Took me almost an hour to get this one off when it was broken, so I'll do that, and I'll check that side, and we'll see where we are. Let's get into it. Might actually just let you run for a little while on that other side, and you can watch me struggle. These are not fun. The one that was broken was very difficult because 16-inch spring with almost 4 inches of preload, and I couldn't get all the preload out. Wanted to push down all the time, and the shock wasn't still attached anymore, so it wanted to spring out and bite me. We got it out, but it took the biggest pry bar I could fit in there. Let's go on the other side. All right. Okay, we're back at her. So we got the other side off. Broken shock was pretty difficult. This side we're gonna struggle with the reservoir, but we may have to take the inner fender well off. But let's get the tie rod out of the way first. So pretty simple. 21 millimeter. Run the nut off. Didn't seem like it was very tight. Just like we did on the Porsche, we'll give it a little bit of a tap, tap. Okay, and there you go. And we Okay, so that's gone. And we know on the other side we have a lot of force required to move the spindle. So let's see how good it is on this side. Oh, it's about the same. So breakaway torque would be terrific on this thing, because you wouldn't have a return to center, caster wouldn't return it to center. We need to free that up, whether it's in that lower ball joint or whatever, we got to free that up. But the good news is we should be able to get this sway bar out of the way, which has plenty of its own friction. But now we can take the sway bar links off and figure out what it takes to do them. I think we should take, let's get the jack under this side and take those nuts and bolts out. A 19 millimeter. So these are just lock nuts that sit on top of the shock. Good thing to have. They're not far enough into the nylock to be terribly effective as a nylock, but since these are threaded and the bolt threads into them, then it's more of a double jam nut style, which should work okay. And we should be able to just get this on here. Okay. One. That's good. I'll come in from the back side here. Two, nice and lubricated, that's good. Shock settled, definitely. Let's see if we can drop the A-arm away at all. Of course not, we can't. So we have to force this one out too. It's the lower, so we can probably take that off. But let's figure out what it takes to do this reservoir first. You know, I think I can do two 10 millimeters, pull it off, swing it down, and then take it off the bracket. Let's get a 10 millimeter. 10 metricals. There's 10 M&Ms. It must be the peanut ones, and these are the plain. And that will do. That comes out, and that comes out. That comes out, maybe? Huh? Maybe? Let's get this sway bar out of the way. Yeah. And then while we're here, let's put these back. Pretty cool design, I don't hate that. Yeah, I don't hate that. Now, my thought is we take this off, smack that with a hammer, push this out of the way. Well, as we move this out, we should be able to drop the lower more. So, yeah, let's take that out, see what happens. What's worse could happen? Not funny, Wayne, not funny. Oh, it's turning. Is it turning? It's turning. Come on, really? It is. I think we need 5 metricals. 5 M&Ms. Oh, there's no M&Ms in that one. No. Whoa, raggy. Turning. That turning? What is turning? I don't know if I like this. Is that broken? No. So if you look, there's a blue piece. There's a blue piece of marking paint right there. If you look, it turns. But this up here doesn't turn. How? How? There's a scratch right there. If I watch it, it does not turn. But that turns. That should be one piece. That's broken. And maybe it's not broken, but I don't know what else could be. Whoa, what the fuck over? Unless there's something I don't know. And trust me, there's lots of that. It sucks back in. That ain't it. What am I missing, Wayne? Well, let's take that off. What am I missing? Just want to know what I'm missing. I'm not a fan. It appears as though there's a bolt that goes all the way through and some sort of taper. I'm just going to say I'm not a fan. Not broken. Not broken. And not right, but not broken. Oh. Oh no. Okay, we have to be careful of the axle. We don't want to overextend it, but we do have to get it down off the shock. As far as we want to go. Shock comes out. Done. That's as much as I'm gonna go. Don't like it. Not happy. So an insert and a sleeve. So what we got here is, this appears to be an insert that goes into the uniball. And then this bolt goes through it and clamps the whole thing together. There seems to be that one and that one. I'm sure it's not the only one doing. It's a good quality bolt. I gotta look at a stock one and see if I like that or not. Oh well, it is what it is. What are you gonna do, right? Not what I'm here for. I'm here to fix it. However, I love wearing gloves. I hate wearing gloves. I do so much office work now that my hands are not like they used to be. I have dainty little fingers and pretty hair. Of course, I don't have pretty hair. I have barely hair. But I was joking around, and my editor, also my wife of 35 years, caught me saying something funny about my pretty hair, and we'll put it on one of the videos, and now that's all I hear. Yeah, well, there's worse things. So we're taking the 3 bolts out from the top. Get the shock loose. As soon as I take the last one out, it will fall. It will drop down, and then we'll fish that reservoir out. It'll be fun stuff. And then we're gonna talk about how much preload is on it, because I don't know what the spring is. It appears to be a 450-ish. That one on that over there is 16¼ inches long. 16¼ inches long, and this one, the way it sits, I gotta get a tape measure. I need to, I think it's 11¾ which would mean 4½ inches of preload-ish. It's a lot. Oh yeah, so yeah, 11¾ So if that one's 16 inches, that's 4½ inches, 4¼ 4½ inches preload. That's no bueno. We want 1 to 2. Maybe less with this little this little sag, but you know, we'll make it work. We'll figure out. We'll just take it to the office. We'll rate some springs. We'll do some stuff. We'll know what we want. By the time we get this thing back on the road, we'll know what we want. But we have explained and confirmed all the things that we suspected. Washers, shocks coming out. Has a convenient nut storage device right there. Like that Porsche I worked on, I would drop the nuts before I weld them to the inner bracket, and they would land in this perfect little pocket every time. It was crazy, like there's a magnet. Okay, shock's off. We're gonna run around the other side, take the reservoir off now that we know how to do that. It's simple, and we'll get these down to the service shop, figure out where we're going. So this is that spring we took off that failed shock on that Bronco yesterday. And I'm gonna try to do this one-handed, but it's not gonna go well. So let's get this set up in the spring raider. I don't feel like losing a finger, so okay. In the spring raider, we will tighten it up. We will turn it on, and can you read? It's not easy to read. Make sure it's zeroed. And let's start making force. I don't know how to shield that. Okay, there's our 1 inch. With a 1/2 inch of preload, it's telling me it is 390. And so that's 1.5 inches, 390 inch-pound. Let's zero again. It zeroed, good. Bring the thunder. That's vice grips. Can't use that. Sorry, Derek. So here we go. We're gonna go another inch. One. 390. 2 at 390. I'm happy. Do we got another inch of it? Let's try. Come on. Come on, button, work. Okay, there we go. Ready? No, we're not gonna get it. We're running out of travel. Too soon. No, we don't have enough travel, but at 0.81, 307, we should be able to extrapolate from that. 0.81 of an inch, 307 pounds. We'll do that math, we'll decide, but 400 inch-pound spring. So on the bench, this is the shock the way it came off the Bronco, 11 3/4 inches. This is the spring from the right side that was on the broken shock, 16 1/4 inches, 16 1/4 minus 11 3/4, 4.5 inches of preload on a 400 inch-pound spring. So we can do that math pretty simple. 4.5 inches times 4.5 times 4 is 1,800 pounds of load on that spring, just the way it sits right now. We need to figure that out. So a little bit of math, not in my head like I just did, in case I did that wrong, and we'll go from there. Okay, driver side now. We have done the upper. The upper is done and it is torqued for testing. The upper is done and it is torqued. £50 breakaway, 45 to 50 pounds breakaway. That's crazy. Okay. And that's with the upper done. So now let's do the lower. To do the lower, we got to take off the brake apparatus, pull the axle. We got to go to the other side and forgot we got to nip up the sway bar on that side, not tight, but let it hang down, and then take these out so we can take that bolt doesn't come out without taking the sway bar off. Not all the way off, but you got to let it hang. And it's electronic, so we're gonna not move it. We're just letting one side loose. So yeah, lots of fun mechanic-y stuff that I figured I'd show you. Oh, little shop dog. Who's got grease all over her nose. She's found something. Anyway, figured I'd show you. We have to take the lower arm off. It has the stock misalignment washers, cam centric washer. You can see a little mark there we put there and there to mark where they go back. I don't know if you can see this side. Maybe in there, and maybe in there. So we mark them so that we can see where it came back, but this is how far I need to go to get this arm off, because I got to take that bad boy out and fix on it a little bit. So yeah, it's a lot of work to get here. Okay, it feels like a lot of work, but it's like an hour. So like 4 hours to figure out the first one, like an hour to do the second one. Lots of cursing, foul language, all sorts of good stuff, and then all of a sudden you get it done. So we'll keep on working, and I'll show you the next one after it's set up. And I think I explained before how it's really stiff. I can't turn it by hand. So I made this. And it's a pretty simple little tool. I just welded a nut to the top of a piece of 2-inch quarter, 3/8 inch wall tube, and it fits over the end of the knuckle. And what my goal is here, and I'm going to make sure you can see this correctly. And this poor old torque wrench she's an old one, like all my stuff. And I like this beam torque wrench because I can actually see what the force is. So, okay, so we're gonna see the break-off torque. We've got a jack, little Toyota scissor screw jack. I like those because they don't move once you put them in, but they don't lift much. So axle's pretty flat, nothing at bind, no tie rod hooked up. The torque wrench is on, and I'm just going to see how much torque it takes to move it. And there's 45 foot-pounds, 55 foot-pounds, 65 foot-pounds to move it that way. Tried to kill the camera. Here we go. $65 foot-pounds to move it that way. That's too much. We have to fix that. We have to make it so that it moves with 10, maybe less. This is why this vehicle darts and moves around going down the road. Earlier, you saw it took 65 plus foot-pounds to turn this knuckle. And when I got this arm off, it's on my messy bench because I've been working, I had to put a shock shaft in here to turn it. Now, after a little really sketchy setup and machining, we can turn the uniball. I haven't modified the uniball at all. All I've done was modified the place the uniball goes. So be sure your uniball cups are not out of round 12 thousandths before you press them in. Okay, again, Bronco, you saw earlier it took 65 foot-pounds to turn the knuckle while fully installed. We are not fully installed. The upper ball joint is not tight. The lower ball joint is tight, but we got to put the axle and stuff in first. But I just wanted to show you the difference. We'll go out here, and my old Craftsman 1987 vintage. And here we go. You ready? Not very much. We're good. Okay, so we're happy with torque on just the uniballs. Now, are we turning the uniballs? Let's get up here and see if you can see them. There is a uniball. Oh, that's pretty good. And uniball turns instead of all sorts of stuff turning inside the uniball. Uniball turns. Let's get down on the lower. Does it turn? Uniball turns in the steering. Shocking. Again, we didn't do anything with the uniballs. They're in their proper usage. It's good. Everything's fine. But they were tight. All we did was modify or repair the mounting cups. The cups were out of round. So, fun stuff. Check your suspension. Parasitic drag. Alright, how's your view? Your view's alright. Your view's okay. Let me just show you this. And remember, we went from 65 plus foot-pounds. Hey, that's just 65 plus foot-pounds to turn the steering knuckle. These are the same spherical bearings, same uniballs. No change other than the mounting. So 65 to one finger. It's a heavy finger. Axle, everything's torqued and installed. Everything's there. Put the tie rod in as soon as we get the shock back in. They just shipped yesterday, so that's good. Let's measure it with torque. We got our little adaptery torqueer thingy. And yeah, we still can't measure. 4. With the caster, 2. Against the caster, 4. Sure. She good. Remember, same uniball. They're still new, they're still tight. They have no play in them. But we have taken all the stiction out, all of the friction, all the parasitic drag. Let's get some shocks in and get this thing back on the road. Hey, looks what's in. Finally got the springs after a snafu and waiting a week, and I bought closed for Memorial Day weekend and the Wednesday, Thursday before too apparently, but here they are. And we got them on, and now let's get this 4-door Bronco out of the shop. It's been here too long. So we'll start the passenger side, whack that in, and let's test drive and get this back to the customer. He probably wants it for the 500 if he hasn't already left. All right, now we're happier. I got the cap on the way it should go. Get me a nut here. I'll get this thing started. Tie rod's out of the way. I'm gonna fish the res. Up in there, like trying to wrestle up octopus with rigor mortis. All right, so I finally got it. I got the one to line up, and now it's not, they're so tight on threads and not scaring me so bad. Okay, shock's on. Let's get the reservoir in place. This is the mount. It goes up in there like that. Yeah, like that. We'll put the mount on. Slide the res in. Those clamps are so easy. Comparatively speaking. That would not be cool if you know all the race cars you're going to watch race do it that way. Okay. We're going to tighten these up. Not tight. I'm going to snug these down a little bit. So we'll hold this position, we'll get it in, fit it. Remember, this is the last assembly. We don't have another. We're not doing this again. So it goes up in there. Hose fits in behind all the things. We want to tuck it in as much as we can. So I'm going to put a bolt in it. Lots of tools between lots of projects, so a little hard. But this one's getting done, so we're happy. It's an extension. What we'll do for now. All right, so here we go. We want this to clamp like that and to be tucked in as tight as we can get it. So I will tighten this bracket. And it's going to come up a little bit like that, yeah, with that bracket. And I'll tighten that Allen right there, and then we'll pop that off. And we'll tighten this. Have to make sure they get tightened easy, even. So I'm going to run this down. And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. Make that gap a little more even. But don't let the reservoir move. And consider that one done. So now the reservoir is held in place. I can just loosen this one. And that reservoir, I want that gap to be, yeah, like that. Okay. Reservoir going in. Watch the lines. Be careful. Goes in like that. There's some new bolts supplied. They appear to still be at 8, 1.5, but they are a different, a 13. One of those was used on this and this other stock, so we'll put what came in the kit. So now what we're doing is we're putting this adapter for the sway bar link right there in that hole. And one of the challenges is it's a 9/16 hole through it. but the nut for a 9/16 you cannot get a wrench on it in there, barely if at all. So you have to align it like that right there and tighten it all from one end. So it's a bit of a challenge, but we'll get it. So let's do that now. So we're putting in the sway bar connect, and then we'll take it out for a test. We'll throw the wheels on, and we'll take it out for a test drive. And go from there. So the sway bars were a bit challenging. They had deformed a little bit when I welded, so they were a bit challenging to get right, but we're happy with where they are. I still would like to take these off and paint them and mill a hex in the left hand side, just so I can you can use a wrench to turn them, because they got a little tight when we welded that left hand bung, but they clear. On the way up they get out of the way. That's as close as they get. Should be good. I'll just do a nut and bolt, a couple of zip ties on a couple things, and we're gonna go test drive it. Okay, so this Bronco is done. The springs finally came in. I put the shocks in, got the sway bar mounts situated, and we're gonna take it for a test drive and see how she rides, see how she drives down the road. We have test driven her once before, drove well down the road, but without more than 4.5 inches of preload on that 400-pound spring. It rode a bit choppy, very imbalanced, and then it was harsh in the small stuff, and the big stuff, the front end would just dive. So we've replaced the spring to the right spring, at least for my math. My math is sketchy, so but hopefully it rides better. Hopefully it's sitting prouder, it's sitting level, it's not nose low anymore, so we're happy about that. So let's go take her for a test drive. The 50-foot test drive went great. No, not at all. No, it was great. We just got to go for a real test drive. We have no issues. We had put a stiffer front spring on the front. Always put a stiffer spring on the front, and that raised the front level, balanced the car, and it doesn't have so much preload on it. With over 4.5 inches of preload on that spring, we think that's probably part of the reason why it separated. Is it probably was pushing out so hard, and then when this sway bar contacted it. But I mean, it's going, there's 45-50 miles an hour. You can one finger drive it. Pretty happy. So we're going to give it back to the customer, and he'll drive it Mexico, all over the place. All right, so it's late. We got the Bronco done. We got it in. Test drove, fixed the shock first, then test drove, found the problem, diagnosed the problem, and the biggest problem here was just friction. All of the joints in the steering and the suspension had a ton of friction. We had to free those up. The bores were a bit too tight or out of round, and therefore the uniball or the monoball was sticky. Once we freed that up, the car drives great. Got new shocks on it. Springs were too soft, and the sway bar link had hit the shock to help break it. And so we made a different kind of sway bar link and put new springs on, and we're happy with the car. We're going to give it back to the owner, and he's going to be good. So if you like what you see, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and recommend us to your friends, anybody who may like to see this, and leave a comment down below. We like hearing from you guys. So thanks for watching.